She sat me by the kitchen. That's where I watched my son get married. Through a swinging door behind a tray of shrimp cocktail. I paid for the wedding. Every flower, every chair. But when the music started and the toasts began, I wasn't part of it. Not even close. I smiled, stayed quiet, and after the last bite of cake, I burned it all to the ground with one phone call. Subscribe if this story finds you, and tell me, where in the world are you watching from? There was no sign, no card, no nameplate, no warm greeting. Just a folding chair with a paper napkin tossed over the seat. That was my place, between a stack of used trays and a wheeled cart with a broken wheel that squeaked every time someone pushed it. I stood there for a few seconds, blinking hard. The scent of marinara hung in the air, thick and sour, clinging to the steam from the kitchen doors. I felt the heat from the ovens against my back, and something inside me twisted. I looked down at my dress, soft mauve chiffon, hand-stitched. I had spent 3 hours getting my hair done that morning. 3 hours pretending this day would be as special for me as it was for them. But no one had told me. No one said, "We've made other seating arrangements." No one even looked at me when I arrived. Not even Daniel. He was too busy, smiling wide, adjusting his cufflinks, letting her mother kiss him on the cheek like she'd raised him. Like she was the one who stayed up every night when he had night terrors. Like she was the one who took double shifts when he needed braces and I couldn't afford both rent and his smile. I clutched my little handbag, beige leather, the one he bought me years ago for Mother's Day when he still called me Mama. My hands were shaking. I could feel it in my wrists, a subtle vibration like something electrical trying to escape through my fingertips. The catering manager, a boy who couldn't be more than, smiled awkwardly. They said you were supposed to wait back here, ma'am. The bride didn't want, any visual clashes with the theme? I stared at him. Theme? He winced, glancing at the swinging doors. The silver edge hit the wall again with a sharp bang. Laughter spilled in from the reception hall, followed by a burst of music. Like aesthetic consistency, with the photos and all. I sat down slowly. The chair creaked. There was a dark stain on the floor under my feet. Gravy, maybe. My shoes stuck slightly when I shifted them. I looked at my nails, freshly done in a soft pink, then at the cold chicken breast someone had dropped in front of me on a chipped white plate. The worst part? I didn't say anything, not one word, because it was his day, because I told myself, don't ruin this for him, don't be that mother, because I had paid for it all and still believed that meant something. I pulled out the program I'd been handed at the church, elegant cursive on cream cardstock, no mention of me anywhere. Her father walked her down the aisle. Her mother gave the first speech. I was just the purse string, the ghost in the kitchen, the woman no one wanted in the picture. The door swung again. I caught a glimpse of the chandelier, the band starting up, the first dance, Daniel and Emily twirling under soft gold light. He didn't look my way once. I pressed my napkin to my mouth, pretending to dab a non-existent stain. My eyes burned. I told myself it was the onions from the kitchen, the steam, the heat, not the betrayal. But it was. God, it was. And somewhere deep inside me, something cracked, quietly, like a hairline fracture in glass you don't notice until the whole pane shatters. I stared at the wall in front of me. There was a patch of peeling paint behind a fire extinguisher. I stared at it so hard, I thought I'd burn a hole through it. That spot became my anchor, my focal point, the only thing keeping me from falling apart in front of a waiter carrying crab puffs. Because if I let it out, if I started crying, I didn't know if I'd ever stop. I took a deep breath, then another. The chicken on my plate had gone cold. I didn't touch it. Eventually, someone brought out dessert. I didn't taste it, just stared at the layers of white and gold, her colors, her perfect little vision. And then I made the call. It was short, direct. I didn't need to explain myself. Just 3 simple cancellations, the flowers for tomorrow's brunch, the second half of the band's payment, and the open bar that was supposed to last until midnight. My voice was steady, calm, controlled. And when I hung up, I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel regret. I felt the first flicker of something I hadn't known in years. Power. I looked down at my hands again, no longer shaking, my heart no longer racing, just a quiet hum, like an engine coming back to life. The door swung again, another flash of light, of laughter, of the life I was excluded from. Let them toast without me. I had my own plans now. I didn't sleep that night, not for a second. I lay in that stiff hotel bed, still in my dress, staring at the ceiling fan spinning above me like it might suddenly unscrew and crash onto my chest. I half hoped it would. I could still smell the kitchen grease in my hair. The perfume of expensive roses mingled with the sour scent of my own sweat, humiliation clinging to my skin like a second layer. At some point I kicked off my shoes. My feet were swollen. They'd hurt during the whole reception, but I hadn't dared take them off. I needed to look presentable, even in the kitchen. It was around a.m. when I sat up. The digital clock glowed red. My phone buzzed again on the nightstand. I didn't check it. I already knew what was there. Missed calls from Daniel, from Emily. A message from my niece that just said, "What happened? Everyone's freaking out." I opened the wedding budget spreadsheet on my tablet. I'd been keeping it meticulously for over a year. I knew every cent, every adjustment, every upgrade, every indulgence Emily asked for, always with a tight smile and that word she used like a knife wrapped in satin: elevated. "Margaret, we just want something a little more elevated." That's how I ended up agreeing to hand-calligraphed invitations from some boutique Etsy vendor in Vermont. That's how the venue changed from the community church hall to a restored barn with chandeliers and antique whiskey barrels. That's how the open bar added a custom cocktail menu, and the cake went from 2 tiers to 5. I paid for it all. No one offered to split the cost. Not Daniel, not her parents. And I never asked, because I wanted him to have everything I couldn't afford when I was raising him. I scrolled through the transactions. My breath caught when I saw them. 2 unauthorized charges made just days before the wedding. Bar tab from a tasting event. Dress rehearsal dinner upgrade. Same restaurant where they sat me in the back near the kitchen again. My stomach clenched. I double-checked the card. My card. Used without permission. And then I saw the note she left on Venmo to one of her bridesmaids. "His mom is covering everything. Might as well go big." Wedding vibes. I didn't cry. Not this time. I felt nothing. That strange, heavy nothing that comes after too much pain. Like my insides had gone numb. Like my nerve endings had curled inward to protect themselves. I reached over and turned on the lamp. The light stung my eyes. I went to the mirror above the dresser. My reflection startled me. There was mascara smudged beneath my eyes. The soft lines of my mouth had hardened into something unfamiliar. My hair was flat, one side crushed from the pillow. I looked like someone who had aged 10 years in one night. But then, something shifted. I smoothed my hair back, washed my face, sat down at the desk, and opened my email. I drafted 3 messages. One to the florist: "Please cancel Sunday delivery. The payment balance is withheld. Thank you." One to the band: "Due to changes in the event schedule, we will not require the second performance. Please consider the matter closed." One to the bar vendor: "We're scaling back post-reception services. Please cancel the second shift. Do not process the remaining balance." All were polite, all professional, but final. It was almost dawn when I hit send, and when the sky outside turned from black to bruised blue, I closed my tablet, sat on the bed, listened to the quiet hum of the air conditioning, and for the first time in months, I felt like myself again. I wasn't angry, not yet, but I was done. Done being convenient, done being the wallet, done being the afterthought. Let them figure it out, let them scramble, let them remember the moment the music cut off, the bar stopped pouring, the flowers never arrived, and wonder why. And maybe, just maybe, they'd remember who made that wedding possible in the first place. The woman in the kitchen, the one they didn't want in the photos. The music pulsed through the wall like a distant heartbeat. I sat there, in that folding chair, with a plate of cold hors d'oeuvres and a Diet Coke from the catering cooler, and tried not to listen, but I couldn't help it. Every laugh, every cheer, every clinking glass, it all made its way back through the swinging door, like a cruel reminder of where I wasn't. I could hear someone making a toast, male voice, probably her father, or maybe Daniel's best man. I leaned back slightly, just enough to catch a glimpse through the crack of the door. There they were, lined up in front of that ridiculous floral arch I paid Didiland for. Gold chairs, floating candles, custom neon sign that read, "The future is forever," in loopy cursive. I recognized the voices even when I couldn't see the faces. Emily's mother, Susan, with her signature fake sympathy tone. "Oh my God, Daniel, you are just the sweetest man alive. Emily is so lucky." Then laughter, cheers. I froze. There, sitting at the head table, was Susan, draped in navy chiffon, dripping in pearls like she was born into old money, which she wasn't. She had met me only 3 times before the wedding. Never asked about my life, never thanked me for the payments, never even offered to contribute a penny. Next to her, Emily's father, holding court like a suburban king. Big, booming laugh. Same man who told me at the rehearsal dinner, "We really admire your perseverance. Raising Daniel on your own and all. Must have been hard. Perseverance. As if I'd hiked a mountain, not worked years in scrubs so my kid could have a life without hand-me-downs. And there was Daniel. My Daniel, smiling like a stranger, sitting between her parents like he'd always belonged to them. I searched for my own family. My sister, Carol, sat 2 rows back, next to our cousin, Diane. Neither of them looked toward the kitchen. No one did. I wasn't part of the show. I was a problem that had been solved by a chair in the back and a door that swung shut. Someone brushed past me. A waiter, young girl, probably in college. She glanced at my plate and smiled, awkward and guilty. "Do you want, a refill or anything?" I shook my head. "I'm fine." But I wasn't. God, I wasn't. Every inch of me ached, feet, shoulders, jaw clenched so tight it pulsed behind my eyes. My heart sat heavy in my chest, like a lump of something rotten that refused to move. I stared down at the plate. 3 olives, a slice of brie, a sad little triangle of toast. I hadn't eaten since breakfast, but I couldn't bring myself to put anything in my mouth. My stomach was a clenched fist, my throat a narrow pipe. I thought of the seating chart. I'd asked Emily gently, weeks ago, "Have you figured out where I'll be sitting?" She smiled, tight, bright. "We're still finalizing everything. Don't worry, Margaret, you'll be included." I should have known. I did know. Somewhere deep down, I knew I was being managed, moved around like a prop, invited for the checkbook, tolerated for the optics, but never truly wanted. The worst part? I said yes to everything. I let them chip away at my role, one tiny concession at a time. No speech from me, no mother-son dance, because they said it would feel awkward. No photos before the ceremony, no mention in the program, just a seat, in the kitchen. I heard Daniel laughing again, that deep, rumbling laugh he used to have as a kid when I'd chase him through the sprinkler in our backyard. The same laugh I hadn't heard directed at me in years. I felt something rise in my chest. Not grief, not disappointment. Rage, quiet, controlled, devastating rage. I stood up, walked toward the swinging door, placed my hand on the edge and pushed just slightly, just enough to peek through again. I locked eyes with Emily. She saw me. She knew where I was, knew what she had done, and she smiled, not apologetically, not nervously, but calmly, confidently, like it was natural, like I was exactly where I belonged. She turned back toward her bridesmaids, tossed her head back, and laughed. That was when I knew this wasn't a mistake. This wasn't an oversight. This was deliberate. They had planned it, chosen it. She didn't want me there, and Daniel had let her. They both had. And just like that, something inside me shifted. Not broken. No, not this time. Repositioned. My place in their lives had changed, and I was done pretending I didn't see it. Let them have their spotlight. Let them drink their champagne. They thought I was invisible. They had no idea what I could take away. The toast started while I was still standing by the kitchen door. Someone had dimmed the lights in the reception hall. I could see the glow of string lights above, and the shimmer of gold from the chargers on each table. The mic squealed once, and then her father's voice boomed through the room like a game show host. "To our daughter Emily and her perfect new husband Daniel." Cheers erupted. I took a step back. The kitchen behind me was chaotic, metal trays clanging, voices rising, a server arguing about table 12's gluten-free plate. I moved to the side, leaned against the wall. The plaster was cold against my back. The smell of garlic and hot oil clung to the air. From the other side of the door, her father kept going. When Emily was little, she told us she wanted a fairy tale. A prince, a castle, and a happy ending. Well, sweetheart, today, you got it. More applause. My breath caught. He was never there when Daniel was little. Never saw me mop vomit off the bathroom floor at AM. Never watched me sew buttons back onto his school uniform. Never drove miles on icy roads just to take him to a chess tournament. But today, they were rewriting the story, and I had been edited out. I looked down at my hands again. My fingers were blotchy, the skin thin, slightly trembling. The cold air vent above made my arms prickle. Then came Emily's mother's turn. Her voice was syrupy, over-rehearsed. "We're so grateful to be joined today by so many people who love Emily and Daniel, and to welcome Daniel into our family. He's like a second son to us already." Another cheer. Like a second son. Not a word about me. Not a word about the woman who raised him. "No, thank you for everything, Margaret. No, we appreciate your generosity. No, this day wouldn't be possible without her." Nothing. I bit the inside of my cheek so hard I tasted blood. My feet ached, but I refused to sit. Then came the part I had been dreading, the groom's speech. Daniel stepped up to the mic. He looked radiant. Strong jaw, confident stance, tailored suit that I had helped pay for. I had seen him take his first breath in a NICU unit. Now he stood there, grown, glowing, a stranger. "I just want to thank everyone for being here," he said. His voice was deeper than I remembered, polished, like he'd rehearsed it in a mirror. "I feel so lucky. Emily, you've made me the happiest man alive. And to your family, thank you for welcoming me like your own. I truly feel at home with you all." My throat closed. "And to everyone who helped make today happen, thank you. This has been the most incredible day of our lives." My name was never said. Not once. I had paid the venue, the catering, the photographer, the DJ, the linens, the custom neon sign. I even paid for the dress Emily wore as she stood there with her hand on his arm. And yet, I didn't exist. The servers clapped. I didn't move. The band picked up again. The dance floor started to fill. Someone brought me a slice of cake on a plastic plate. I stared at it. Vanilla, with raspberry filling. Her favorite. I don't like raspberry. Never did. I looked at the thin gold fork they gave me. My hand was steady now. I remembered when Daniel turned 10 and asked for chocolate cake with sprinkles. I worked 2 extra shifts just to buy the one from the bakery he'd pointed to in the window. His eyes lit up when he saw it. He hugged me so tight that day. That boy was gone. In his place, a man who didn't even remember to save me a chair. I set the cake aside. I waited until the last bite of dessert was served, until people were getting up, loosening their ties, wiping icing from their lips, until the music hit that perfect peak. Then I walked out of the kitchen, straight past the servers, straight past the bar, out the side door. The air outside was cool and still, the kind of silence that hums in your ears. I took out my phone. 3 calls, 1 to the florist, 1 to the band, 1 to the bar manager, polite, direct, no need for explanations. By the time I walked back into the hotel, the wheels were already turning. Tomorrow's brunch? Cancelled. Late night music set? Pulled. Second bartender and cocktail menu? Gone. I had stayed quiet long enough. Let them enjoy what's left. Let them feel the gap, the absence. Let them ask questions. I didn't care if they called me dramatic, petty, ungrateful. They already erased me from the story. All I did was turn the page. The hotel room smelled like rose lotion and something faintly metallic. Maybe the stress, maybe my skin. I sat cross-legged on the bed, the comforter still perfectly made beneath me, untouched since I checked in 2 nights ago. I hadn't cried, not once, but something inside me had turned cold. Not frozen, no. Frozen things are brittle. They crack. I was hardening, tempered. The sun hadn't even come up yet. I reached for my purse and pulled out my phone. 6 missed calls, 2 voicemails, a dozen messages. "Daniel, where are you? Why is the brunch canceled? Mom, seriously, this isn't funny. Emily, I don't understand what's going on. Are you okay? Please respond. This is so childish." I laughed, quietly. Just a puff of air through my nose. Childish? I opened the banking app again. My fingers moved with the muscle memory of someone who had balanced a checkbook every Sunday for 3 decades. The charges were still there, unauthorized, arrogant. The bride, my new daughter-in-law, had helped herself to my card for a pre-wedding bar crawl and a spa day with her bridal party. I could see it all in the itemized receipts. Bottles of champagne, manicures, facial masks, brunch for 8. No one asked me. No one even told me. The trust I'd carried in my chest like an old quilt, warm, familiar, felt shredded, like someone had taken scissors to it while I slept. I clicked over to my emails. There were 2 new ones, one from the florist. "We're disappointed by the sudden cancellation, but we understand. Per our agreement, no refunds for less than our notice." Fine. The second email was from the band's manager. We were halfway through setting up when the cancellation came in. It's extremely unusual, but your message was clear. We'll leave the deposit untouched. Also fine. I wasn't doing this for a refund. This was for me, for the invisible woman in the kitchen chair, for the mother erased from her own son's milestone. My stomach growled. I hadn't eaten since the day before. The idea of food made me nauseous. Instead, I got up, pulled the stiff curtains open, and watched the sun bleed into the sky. Orange, then pink, then a pale yellow that made everything look unreal. And then I remembered something. A little red file folder, stuffed away in the drawer of my dresser back home. Old paperwork, legal things, letters I never threw out. I felt pulled to it, like it had been whispering to me this whole time. I packed my things slowly, took a shower, washed off the perfume and the resentment, dried my hair, put on jeans and a button-down shirt that still smelled faintly like lavender detergent, checked out of the hotel without a word. The drive home was quiet, just the sound of tires on asphalt and the soft static of the radio playing songs I didn't know. The kind of drive where you start to hear your own thoughts, loud and unfiltered. He didn't mention you. They all saw where you were sitting. No one did anything. When I pulled into my driveway, the roses I had planted 2 summers ago were in full bloom. I didn't stop to admire them. I went straight to the bedroom, opened the dresser, pulled the red folder out, sat on the bed. At the bottom of the stack, beneath old insurance papers and a few photos I hadn't looked at in years, was a letter. The envelope was yellowed at the corners, postmarked from Arizona, a date written in my late husband's handwriting, the year he left. I remembered finding it weeks after he died. I hadn't opened it then. I couldn't. It had felt like salt in an open wound, like letting him speak from the grave when I wasn't ready to listen. But now, I slid my finger under the flap. The paper was thin, his handwriting slanted and familiar. It started simple. Margaret, I know you never wanted to hear from me again, but I need to tell you something. I felt my pulse pick up. My hands trembled slightly. I've been carrying a secret, and I can't take it to the grave. You deserve the truth. Daniel, he isn't biologically yours. I found out years ago. Emily was pregnant when we got together. I thought I could pretend he was mine, but he's not, and neither of us ever told you. I stopped reading. The room spun just for a second, then settled. I read the rest. Apologies, excuses, regrets, words that meant nothing now. Daniel, my Daniel, was the product of an affair, another woman's child, left on my doorstep like a test I didn't know I was taking, and I passed. God help me, I passed. Every scraped knee, every bedtime story, every night shift I took to buy him sneakers and class photos, I passed with flying colors. And yet, here I was, discarded, replaced, erased. But now, I had a new clarity, a truth sharp enough to cut through years of silence. And I was done bleeding. I didn't cry. Even as I sat there with that letter trembling in my lap, the weight of it heavier than anything I'd ever held, I didn't shed a single tear. What would be the point? Tears had built Daniel's childhood. Tears paid for his shoes, his asthma medication, his first car. They filled my pillow after his father left, and again when he walked across that high school stage, not once turning to wave at me in the crowd. I had run out of tears years ago. What I had now was something else. Not grief, not heartbreak. Clarity. I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a cup of coffee. Black, strong. I sat by the window and watched the neighbor's sprinkler tick-tick-tick across the lawn. It was a normal Sunday morning, but I was no longer the woman who paid for someone else's fairy tale and got a folding chair behind the punch bowl in return. I was no longer the woman who would swallow this. Not this. I opened my phone and began with the florist. My voice was calm, polite. I thanked them for their understanding, confirmed again that Sunday's arrangements would not be needed. I didn't explain. I didn't owe them that. The band was next. Same tone, same silence about the reason. Then the bar service. Hi, this is Margaret Langley. Yes, that's right. I'm calling to cancel the cocktail reception for the post-wedding brunch. Yes. No issues. Just a change of heart. Thank you. Click. 3 calls, 3 cuts. I could have left it there, but I didn't, because I knew what was coming. I turned off my phone, turned it back on 5 minutes later. 38 unread messages, 3 voicemails. Daniel again. Mom, where are you? The band didn't show. What the hell is going on? Emily's mother. I don't know what's happening, but this is incredibly unprofessional. People are asking questions. Then Emily herself. Margaret, seriously, is this because you were upset about the seating? That's just petty. We had a vision. Don't ruin this. Petty. The word echoed, like a slur, like a branding iron. And yet, when I closed my eyes, all I could see was her smirking across the reception hall, knowing where I was. Knowing what she had done. Knowing I wouldn't fight back. Until now. I turned off the phone again. Let them spiral. Let the questions pile up. Let them realize the bar ran dry because I was the well. That the music stopped because I paid the final note. That the flowers never arrived because the roots were rotten. I cleaned the kitchen, wiped the counters, fed the cat. It was the most peace I'd felt in months. Around noon, the doorbell rang. I didn't answer. Let them knock. Let them sit in the heat of their own discomfort. Later that night, I posted a single photo on Facebook. Not of the wedding, not of me. Just a picture of the check I wrote. Blurred out the account number. Left the signature visible. No caption, no explanation, just that. A truth they couldn't deny. A receipt of sacrifice. And then I logged off. Not just from Facebook. From the guilt. From the silence. From pretending this wasn't betrayal. I didn't need their explanations, their spin, their justifications. Let them sit in the wreckage. I wasn't going to save them from it. The silence was the first sign they were scrambling. No more messages, no more calls, just a strange, stretching quiet, like the eye of a storm passing directly over my house. I could feel it, the tension, the waiting. They didn't know what I would do next. I didn't either, but it was going to be mine. Monday morning, I brewed coffee and sat by the window again. No makeup, no earrings, just me and the day, and the hum of the fridge in the background. Daniel hadn't called since yesterday. The last voicemail had been short, stiff, defensive. You really made a scene, Mom. Everyone's talking. You embarrassed us. I don't know what you were trying to prove, but you crossed a line. I didn't even flinch when I heard it. Because here's the truth, no one likes to say aloud. You can give everything to someone. Your time, your money, your love, and still be disposable. You can build their entire world and still be told you're not part of the aesthetic. The betrayal didn't surprise me anymore. What surprised me was how little I cared now that I'd stopped begging for their approval. That morning, I deleted his contact from my phone. Just the name. The number remained. I didn't need to forget him. I just didn't want his name lighting up my screen like it still belonged there. Around noon, I went out. Grocery store, post office, small errands. Life continued. And in the bakery aisle of all places, I saw Diane, my cousin who'd flown in for the wedding. She smiled when she spotted me, but there was hesitation behind it. Margaret? Hey. I nodded. She stepped closer, lowered her voice. Are you okay? I met her eyes. Were you okay? I asked, watching me sit back there. She flushed. I didn't realize that was on purpose. I thought maybe you... No, I cut in gently. You didn't think. That's all. There was a long silence. I'm sorry, she said finally. It was wrong. I should have said something. I nodded once. Thank you. She looked relieved, like that small moment of accountability had freed her. It hadn't freed me, but it was a start. When I got home, I found a bouquet on my porch. Carnations, the cheap kind, already wilting. No card. I didn't bring them inside. Instead, I walked them straight to the trash bin. Later that evening, I checked Facebook. The photo of the check had nearly 100 comments. Old friends, colleagues, neighbors, people I hadn't heard from in years. Some were confused, some were outraged, but most understood. One comment stuck out. This broke my heart, Margaret, and I've never related to something so deeply. Thank you for showing us we don't have to stay quiet. That was it. The beginning of something new. Not revenge, not spite, power. Reclaimed. Let them rage in group chats. Let them spin their own narrative. I wasn't replying. I wasn't explaining. I was finally choosing silence, not as submission, but as control. And the silence, this time, was mine. It started with the drawer. A creaky old thing in the guest room dresser, half stuck, always needing a little hip bump to open. I wasn't even looking for anything in particular, just clearing out the remnants of a life I'd been too tired to sort through. But somewhere between the yellowing tax returns and expired coupons, I found it. That red folder again. The same one I thought I'd already emptied. But tucked into the sleeve, so thin it might as well have been part of the lining, was a second letter. No envelope this time, just folded, once, then again, handwritten, same slanted scrawl, same name. My ex-husband's signature stared up at me like a ghost. Michael. It was dated 3 days before his death. Margaret, if you're reading this, I guess the first letter reached you. I don't know if you opened it. I hope you did. I won't waste time apologizing again. I need to tell you something more, something I couldn't carry with me, something I should have said a long time ago. Daniel wasn't just someone else's son. He was never supposed to be yours at all. When Emily left him at my door, she didn't want to keep him. She was 18, terrified. She asked me to give him up for adoption. I couldn't. I didn't have the heart. I lied to you. I told you he was ours, that it was a mistake from before we got married. You believed me. You raised him. You loved him like he was flesh of your flesh. But the truth is, he wasn't even that. He was a stranger's child. And you made him your world anyway. I don't know how you'll feel reading this, but I hope, God, I hope, you know that whatever else I did wrong, I was right about choosing you. You were the only person strong enough to be his mother, not because of blood, but because of who you are. I didn't move. The words sat on my chest like a boulder, not biologically mine, not even accidentally mine, chosen by a man who abandoned both of us, who gave me a child and then walked away like it was a favor. My breath caught. For the first time in days, my knees went weak. I sat down on the edge of the bed, paper still in my hand. 1,000 images flashed in my mind. The first time I rocked Daniel to sleep, his tiny fists curled against my shoulder. His first word, truck. The fever that scared me so badly, I drove to the ER barefoot in winter. The science fair project he stayed up crying over when the volcano wouldn't erupt. His first real heartbreak. His laugh when he found out he'd gotten into college. Every moment I thought was ours. I had built my life around this boy. I had shaped my identity around being his mother. And now I had to accept something no woman should ever have to. He never truly saw me that way. He loved what I gave, not who I was. Not really. If he had, he never would have let her put me in that kitchen. He never would have stayed silent. He never would have let them erase me. I placed the letter on the bed, smoothed it out with my palm. It didn't feel like betrayal anymore. It felt like freedom. For 62 years, I had lived a version of myself that only existed in service to others. Wife, mother, provider, ghost. But now, with that truth staring up at me in ink faded with age, I saw something new. I had power I didn't even realize, because I loved someone completely who never belonged to me, and I never let that stop me. Because I chose to stay when others ran. Because I made a family, even when it wasn't written in blood, and I could choose again, starting now. I left the letter open on the kitchen table, didn't hide it, didn't lock it away, just let it sit there, plain and visible, like a truth I no longer needed to shield from myself. I moved through the house like I was seeing it for the first time. The beige walls, the faded photos of Daniel's high school graduation, the dent in the doorframe from when he crashed his bike trying to ride inside. I used to smile at that dent. Now I just stared at it. That house was a museum of sacrifices, of all the ways I'd erased myself to keep him whole. The faded armchair I nursed him in, the sewing kit I used to hem his pants, the pantry still full of his favorite cereal, Honey Bunches of Oats, even though I stopped liking it years ago. It hit me all at once. I didn't know what my favorite cereal was. I didn't know the last book I'd read that wasn't a parenting guide or something from the hospital's required reading list. I didn't remember the last time I spent money on something just for me. I had lived so long being his mother, I'd forgotten how to be a woman. A person. I poured myself a glass of water and sat on the couch. The silence in the house had changed. It didn't feel lonely. It felt honest. My phone buzzed on the side table. Daniel again. A long message this time, a different tone. I don't know what happened. I've been thinking about everything. Emily said she didn't mean to hurt you. I'm sorry if you felt excluded. If I felt, not because you excluded me, not because you left me behind. If I felt, it was still about his perception, his comfort, his distance from blame. I didn't respond. Instead, I picked up the remote and turned on the TV. The hum of a cooking show filled the room. Calm, steady. My eyes drifted to the letter again. He wasn't mine. Not biologically, not legally, but I had been his, until he made it clear I was no longer part of the family he was building. The ache inside me wasn't for him anymore. It was for the version of myself I had abandoned to raise someone who never once turned around to ask, "Are you okay, Mom?" All those years, all those birthdays I made special, all those Christmas mornings I stayed up past midnight wrapping dollar store gifts in perfect bows, all those "you go sit, I'll do the dishes" kind of days I never had because no one ever offered. I had been his background music, his safety net, his reliable silence, but no more. That evening, I took every framed photo of us off the wall, not out of anger, not out of spite, because it was time to stop living in a shrine to a version of motherhood that demanded I disappear. I boxed them gently, wrapped the glass in old towels, labeled the box memories, not obligations. I cooked dinner, just for me, a recipe I saw once on a travel show, lemon butter pasta with roasted cherry tomatoes and garlic. No chicken nuggets, no side of mac and cheese, just what I wanted. I lit a candle while I ate, played soft jazz, set the table for one. It was quiet, but not empty. It was the sound of reclaiming something I hadn't realized I'd lost, myself. The invitation list started with silence. No glitter pens, no gold foil, just a lined yellow notepad and the sound of my pen scratching across it. I wrote the names one by one, not people I had to invite. People I wanted to. Claire, my old friend from the ER who used to sneak coffee into my locker when I worked doubles. Mr. Henderson, my next-door neighbor who always snowblowed my driveway before I could get out there. Dina, from the bookstore I visit every Sunday, who always asks about my week and actually listens. Nurse Janet, who once stayed late on her own birthday to help me cover a shift. No one shared my blood, but every single one had made me feel seen in a way my own son never had. And that was the new theme, people who saw me. It wasn't a wedding, wasn't a holiday, just a dinner, at my house, with my food, at my table, no folding chairs, no back kitchens. I spent the next few days getting everything ready, not because I had to impress anyone, but because I wanted to. For the first time in years, I wasn't preparing something for someone else's story. This wasn't about Daniel. It wasn't about redemption. It wasn't about proving anything. It was about making space for joy. For me, I went to the market and picked out the ingredients myself. Fresh basil, garlic, heirloom tomatoes, not a single frozen appetizer tray in sight. I even bought a new tablecloth, blue with sunflowers. It reminded me of something I would have liked when I was 20, before all the shoulds started stacking up like bricks around my life. On the morning of the dinner, I woke up early and played music while I cooked. Van Morrison, Stevie Nicks, Norah Jones. My house smelled like garlic and olive oil and lemon zest, like warmth, like effort, like home. The first guest arrived just before 6. Claire, with a bottle of red and a huge smile. "You look amazing, Maggie." I did. Hair soft, gray at the temples, but loose and confident. A linen blouse that made my skin feel cool. No Spanx, no mascara tears waiting to happen. Just me. They trickled in after that. 6 guests. Laughter at the door. Hugs that lasted longer than they needed to. Wine being poured without asking permission. We ate at the table I once used for folding laundry and helping Daniel with math homework. Now it was full of passing plates, clinking forks, napkins being dabbed to mouths mid-laughter. I laughed too, really laughed. Someone brought up bad first dates. Someone else admitted to stealing a pen from the bank every week out of spite. And somewhere between dessert and seconds, it hit me. This was family, not assigned by blood, but chosen, intentionally, authentically. I didn't feel forgotten. I didn't feel managed. I didn't feel small. I felt present. Toward the end of the evening, as we sat under the string lights I'd strung across the back porch, Claire raised a glass. "To Margaret," she said, "for being the kind of woman who reminds us that it's never too late to take your seat at the head of your own table." Everyone clinked glasses. I laughed softly, and I meant every word when I raised my glass and said, "To finally being seen." The knock came just after noon. Not loud, not urgent, but steady, like he knew I was home and wasn't going to leave until I opened the door. I stood in the hallway, barefoot, watching his silhouette through the frosted glass. Daniel. It had been a week since the wedding. 7 days of silence from me. 7 days of unraveling for him. I opened the door slowly. He looked the same, but not really. The suit was gone. So was the glow. He wore a wrinkled t-shirt, dark circles under his eyes. His mouth tightened when he saw me, like he'd rehearsed 10 different ways to start this conversation and forgot them all at once. "Hi, Mom." I didn't say it back. I stepped aside, let him in. He hesitated, then walked past me. The house was clean, quiet. Sunlight streamed across the living room floor. On the mantel, the photos were gone, every last one of him. He noticed. His eyes flicked to the empty spaces. "Where are the pictures?" I ignored the question. "Sit down," I said. Calm, flat. He obeyed, sinking into the armchair across from me. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, he sighed, ran a hand through his hair. "I didn't come here to fight." I nodded. "Good. He shook his head. "I don't understand what happened. 1 minute everything was fine, and the next, you're canceling things, posting checks on Facebook." That stung. He didn't ask how I felt. He didn't say, "I'm sorry." He wanted an explanation. I stood, walked to the hallway closet, and pulled out a box, set it down gently on the coffee table between us. "What's this?" he asked. "Receipts," I said. "Every one of them, from the last 12 months. Venue deposits, dress fittings, caterer down payments. I even covered the extra dance floor you wanted. Remember that?" His eyes scanned the papers, but didn't touch them. Then I pulled out the next item, the letter, his father's handwriting, unmistakable. I didn't speak while he read. I watched his face. At first, confusion, then recognition, then the slow, creeping shade of disbelief. He looked up. His voice cracked. "You knew?" "I do now," I said. He swallowed hard. "So you're angry because I'm not angry because you're not my biological son," I said, cutting him off. "I'm angry because I raised you, Daniel. I gave you everything I had, and when the moment came for you to honor me, to stand up and say, 'This woman made me,' you sat down." He looked down. "Silent. You let them push me into the kitchen," I continued. My voice didn't shake. "You watched them humiliate me, and you said nothing. That's what broke me. Not your DNA, not the money." He finally spoke, barely above a whisper. "I didn't think it would matter," Emily said. "She said it would be better for the pictures, for the look. I didn't think you'd be hurt." I laughed, cold, brief. "You didn't think." "Exactly." I stood, walked over to the mantel, held up one of the empty frames. "This used to hold a photo of your kindergarten graduation. You had a missing tooth and marker on your shirt. You ran off the stage, straight into my arms." I placed it face down. "I'm done holding on to versions of you that no longer exist." He flinched like I'd hit him. "Mom." "No," I said firmly. "I'm not your backdrop anymore. I'm not your bank. I'm not your afterthought." He looked at the floor, his jaw clenched. He nodded slowly. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "Too little. Too late." I picked up the box, closed the lid, handed it to him. "These are yours now. Take them. Every receipt, every record, every reminder of what you chose to overlook." He hesitated, then took the box, and I walked him to the door. He paused at the threshold, looked back at me like he was searching for a crack, a softness, a sign that the door might open again later, but it wouldn't. "You always said I was your whole world," he said quietly. "You were," I replied, "and now I'm finally mine." Then I closed the door. The house was warm with laughter, real laughter, the kind that fills your chest and makes your eyes crinkle without you even noticing, the kind that echoes through the walls and reminds you you're alive. The smell of garlic and rosemary danced through the air. The table was set with care. Blue and sunflower yellow cloth, mismatched plates, cloth napkins folded into little fans. I had placed a candle in the center, not to impress anyone, just because I liked the way the flame made the silverware shine. My guests were gathered in the living room, sipping wine, sharing stories. Mr. Henderson was in the corner, telling a story about how he once locked himself out of his house in his underwear. Everyone was howling. Claire had tears in her eyes from laughing so hard. And me? I was standing in the kitchen, barefoot, holding a glass of wine, smiling, not waiting to be called in, not hidden behind a door, not forgotten. I was hostess. I was present. I was seen. I plated the last dish, roasted vegetables with thyme and sea salt, and brought it out. As I set it on the table, someone clapped. "Chef Margaret strikes again," Claire said with a grin. We sat, passed the bowls, poured more wine. Somewhere between the second helping and the last bite of cornbread, Claire raised her glass again. I think we should toast, she said. Everyone nodded. To what? Dina asked. Claire turned to me. To choosing yourself, she said, and to knowing when to stop giving to people who only know how to take. Everyone raised their glass. And I, finally, fully, raised mine too. I stood up. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't tremble. I looked at every face around that table. People who weren't bound to me by obligation or blood, but by choice, by love, by respect. And I said, to the mothers who stayed quiet for too long, to the women who gave everything and were told it still wasn't enough, to the ones who were asked to sit in the kitchen after building the damn house, this is for us. May we never sit down again unless it's at the head of our own table. Glasses clinked. Someone cheered. And I sat down, not in the back, not out of sight, not in exile, but in my chair, my place. Daniel never called again. I didn't need him to. The people who matter were already here. The next morning I woke up to birdsong and light pouring through my window. No regrets, no tightness in my chest, just peace. I made coffee, sat on the porch with my robe fluttering gently in the breeze. I looked out at my garden, roses blooming wild and bright. I wasn't someone's backdrop anymore. I was the main character in my own life. And finally, that was enough. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.